And it looks like, yes, we are live. Fantastic. Kia ora tato. Welcome back to another Q&A here at Digital Boost. I'm Georgia Hatzis, your host. I'm really excited today because we get to talk about 365 Copilot. We've been waiting for this all year. I've got Darren Oxlee here and Paul Bowkett from Microsoft. So I'm not going to pass it on to you yet because I just want to say, if you haven't seen any of the Q&As I've done with Darren in the past, please go into the platform and make sure you check them out. We did talk a lot about Copilot and other Microsoft. We did Microsoft Office in the past, so you can get a little taste of what's going on there. This is a big one for us because it's AI tools, how they're shifting in the world. We're going to have Darren talk a little bit about how we're using AI right now in our businesses. I know we're all really excited about integrating that in a way that we didn't last year, like a whole year later. I think we're starting to accept that AI is here to stay and we can use it. It's not using us. So that's what I'm excited about. Paul, on the other hand, is the guru of 365 Copilot. He's been at Microsoft for eons. Like basically, I feel like you invented Microsoft at this point after being there for 20 plus years.
I
So
wish.
it's so special having you here. Yeah, I wish to, right? I wish it was mine. It's so special to have you here, Paul, and so special to have Darren here. I am really excited for us to launch this right now. If you have questions, pop them into the Q&A function here in the Zoom. I will be fielding them for you. We're going to do a little presentation and then we'll do a Q&A after. So if you're asking questions in between, I'm going to hold off and ask them later. But yeah, but feel free to ask as it comes up. Just type in your questions and we will hang out and answer them for you. Thank you. Welcome, Darren. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Georgia.
Thank you, Georgia. And as always, so appreciate this forum and the ability to kind of chat to our Aotearoa small businesses. They are without doubt the kind of backbone of the economy in the country. And, you know, we're living in such interesting times, just broadly speaking. And obviously AI and generative AI is redefining lots and lots of things. Not only is it redefining them, it's also redefining them at a pace that, I mean, I haven't seen in the tech sector in, I don't think ever. All right. So yeah, so appreciate this time. Look forward to the questions that are coming in. And I thought what we do just to set the scene, just by way of introduction. So obviously my name's Darren. I look after what we call our modern workplace and security business for small and medium business across Australia and New Zealand. And it's my great privilege to work with customers on this journey and see kind of what's happening in this super transformative stage. So what I thought I'd do is I'd pop through a couple of slides, maybe just to set the scene. Some of it's based on some of the market research from Microsoft's Work Trend Index, so we'll get some themes from that. But let's jump in, and I think that I mean everyone's the noise around generative AI tools, ChatGPT, etc. at the moment is just astonishing, right? Everyone seems to be there's someone's using it somewhere. My son at school's using it for doing code for his schoolwork, and it's just popping up all over the place. And I think that there are a number of different priorities that are fundamentally changing the way in which we work, right? And I think, Georgia, you mentioned, you know, we talked about this a year ago, and if I think of how far we've come in that 12-month period or whatever it's been, to what's coming in the next 6 months, you know, this will continue to evolve the way companies operate in the future, and that really is the bottom line. So I think there's some fundamental priorities. The first is really around driving that bottom line efficiency into business. So whether that being using AI tools to increase revenue, so for example, getting smarter around how we work with our customers, or using the tools to reduce cost. So it's very much a profitability and a bottom line discussion. The other very important piece that we see is how AI is starting to and is going to in the future drive cost savings in the business by doing things like driving operational efficiencies. So, you know, the ability of a machine learning model, for example, to look at a business process and find ways of optimizing that as humans we might not, is certainly a theme that we'll see come up, you know, become more relevant in the future. So the optimization of work is an interesting one. And we'll come back to that in a bit because there's the discussion around the kind of employability and where does that sit. The other very, very clear theme that we're seeing is a boost in the productivity, and not only the productivity of employees, but the experience of employees in their jobs, right? So one is how we use that to drive up the effective efficiency of employees. So the more revenue that you can generate per employee, the more efficient your business is. things like time to on-ramp, right? How do you get someone into a job and get them into that job faster by giving them the tools that they can ask questions of that give them contextual information back? Another really interesting one is employee retention, right? There's a theme around when people are looking for jobs now, there are questions being asked around how is your company using or using AI tools to you kind of, will I be using AI tools in my day job? So just that's some context. The other thing, and you mentioned it, Georgia, before we went live with this, is that you said AI is here, and that's absolutely true. AI has come to work; it's here already, and it's interesting that there's some interesting themes around this. One is that 3/4 of people are already using AI in their jobs, and again, this is off the 2024 work trend index from that Microsoft publishes. So 3/4, right? What's also very interesting and to me a little bit scary is that 78% of the people surveyed are bringing their own AI tools to work. And that really for me is it's in a sense, it's great because it's showing a little bit of kind of employee-led innovation, but that also opens up a whole raft of security and privacy and various other things. I'd be, if I was the CTO or CIO of a company, and I had a bunch of people rocking up with their own tools running AI against the company's information, that raises some really, really serious flags. A really good example of that is whether you're using, for us internally, obviously Teams meetings or on Zoom or Hangouts, wherever you are, where you've got these bots that are dialing in, the bots are transcribing the meeting and taking notes, those kind of functions. But where's that data going, right? So there's a question around that. So you've got to be really, really prudent around how you implement these tools and monitor them within your business. But the other one that was quite interesting is that like half of people are reluctant to admit that they're actually using these tools to do their tasks, right? So I think it's a good and a bad thing, but it's good because it means that people are like experimenting. So we're very much in this, I call it an R&D phase for the generative AI tools and the AI tools in general, where companies are kind of feeling where it is, trying to get a sense where it is. But this will fundamentally change how things are in the future. The other one that was quite an insightful data point was around where company leadership is in this whole question. So 4 out of 5 say it's important. We see it as to remain competitive, we need to have this in play. But almost 2/3 don't really know how to do it. They lack the planning and the vision as to how do I take these tools and how do I embed them into my organization to the organization's benefit, which is the third point, right? So 60% are saying they're worried about how do we, if we go down this path of making these investments, how do we quantify the productivity gains that we get through the AI tools? So there's some quite useful data points there. And I think the kind of, I guess the key takeaway is that the point AI is here. The question is, how do we use these tools responsibly within our organizations and make sure that we're getting a return on the investment as we move forward? And with that, I'll jump into just a little bit more detail around Copilot for Microsoft 365. So it's a little bit Microsoft specific, but it's really interesting to see how this has changed the way we work. So the sort of broader themes of this is that you've got a number of different types of Copilots. In our case, you've got Copilot Web Chat, which is what they call a web grounding. And this is basically Copilot that goes out onto the web, searches through sorry, I'm just going to move my screen a bit. It goes basically, looks at the web, pulls back contextual data based on your search that you can use internally. The second is the Copilot with work grounding. So this looks at your work data, leveraging the large language models like GPT-4 Turbo. I think there's a new one of that's coming out now or been released now. Looks at your context using a tool called Microsoft Graph, and then embeds it into applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams. So I think the really cool thing about this is that, for example, in Teams, Copilot is embedded in Teams. It embeds, it transcribes, it can pull out action points, it gets key themes within your meeting, it can put your meetings into different, it categorizes your meeting into different themes, and it's using your company's the company's data to return contextual data back to you based on whatever you're searching for. And another really important point is that we also have the ability to be extensible. So it's not only looking at Microsoft specific data from that perspective, but there are also plugins to, I think, there are 1,200 plus external companies that we will link the tools into. For example, you can plug into in Adobe, SAP, and a number of other, like organizations that businesses depend on for part of their kind of day-to-day operations. So there's extensibility into those. And all of that is wrapped, and Copilot Studio, which I kind of see as the sort of development. So that helps in terms of customizing some of the functionality that you want and building some of that extensibility. And all of that is wrapped around an enterprise-grade security, privacy, and compliance mantra. It's very, very important that, from a Microsoft perspective, that we're looking after and protecting users' data. And we'll come on to that in a little bit. Some early feedback from users. 3/4 of them said that Copilot made them more productive. 68% said that Copilot improved the quality of their work. It certainly helps create documents and presentations faster. So a very, very simple example that I was doing an RFP for a contract that we're outsourcing, and we, as an output of a Teams meeting, had been the milestones of the RFP, that process for the RFP. And I asked Copilot to go and build me the timeline of the RFP with deadline dates in it and to create a table for me. And Copilot within Teams generated that data for me, and I literally copied and pasted that into the RFP document. So super useful for that. I didn't have to go and type out that whole table. And it's contextual back to the meeting, right? So it's really, really great for that. I think the other thing that's been amazing, certainly for me personally, is around PowerPoint and the ability to generate really great PowerPoint content really, really quickly. So just speeding up those things which previously would have taken time. And then I think, again, my personal experience, and I'm sure Paul will share some in a bit, but for me, and we spend a lot of times in meetings, mostly remote because we're working across different regions, but the Copilot within Teams is just astonishingly good. So you can capture, very long meetings, summarize them, key actions, key outputs. You can find where you've been mentioned. You can go and search, theme-based searches against that. And you get, as I said, you get a summary at the end. And the ability to have that as a kind of a catch-up tool, even if you've been off for a week, you can come back in and you can say, hey, what did I miss from Paul Bowkett in the last week, right? And it'll go and find the information from Paul, and it'll tell me all the information that I may have missed. So it's very, very, very powerful for that. And then overall, the research is showing at this point in time, it's saving roughly 10 and more than 10 hours per user, per employee per month. And I can absolutely attest to that. For me, it's an absolute game changer in my day-to-day job. So it really does change the way that we work and the way that we interact. Some of the fundamental differentiators in terms of where we see things at the moment. Firstly, Microsoft really has taken a leadership position in this massive investment into this Copilot, this artificial intelligence era. There are 15,000 engineers dedicated to Copilot for Office 365, Microsoft 365, right? 15,000. So there's a huge investment in this. And it's driving massive innovation at massive pace, right? So it's really, really important. As I mentioned earlier, the other piece is it's fully integrated into the suite. So you don't have to go outside of it, provided you're licensed, of course. You don't have to go outside of the suite to get the benefit from this integrated, Copilot stack. I think the other really important thing is it really is a differentiator using, I mentioned earlier, Microsoft Graph, which goes and looks across your data set and returns better responses to your prompts and your queries based on your company data. I talked about the customization and extensibility previously, and then maybe the one that stands out for me the most is around the adoption and skilling piece. So, and we'll talk about this in a bit. One of the fundamentally different things about these tools, these artificial intelligence tools, is it's not like in the old days where you went and bought a license for a product, installed the product, and started using it. This is much more of a change management and adoption process within businesses because it changes the way that we work. And I think the adoption and skilling piece here is really, really important. And there's some phenomenal assets that Microsoft is building and built as we go through this process based on our learnings to help organizations effectively adopt and internalize and go through the change management process that they need to go through. So things like the Copilot Lab, Scenario Manager, there's a Learning Academy, just to help businesses understand more effectively how they can get out what they can get out of the tools. And then from an impact perspective, there was lots of questions up front. So how do I measure the impact of this? And there is a Copilot dashboard which provides some of the insights as to how that works. So let me just tell you very, very quickly, and maybe for those of you that haven't seen the model of how these models work. So really it starts with you as the user. And basically what you're doing is you are directing the AI tool, in this case Copilot, to create content for you by typing a question or an instruction into a chat box. And this is called a prompt. And in the current iteration of these tools, prompting is really important. The way in which you structure your prompt to get the right information back, the better your prompt, the better the information that's returned. So it's really, really important that that's the interaction. I think as time evolves, the prompting will become less of a critical factor. It's going to get more intuitive in terms of what you're looking for and the results that you get returned. But basically what it then does is it takes your prompt, it sends it through what we call an AI orchestrator and to a large language model. So your prompt tells the orchestrator to pull the relevant information from the LLM or large language model. You've heard the term grounding. So basically, Copilot can do two things. One, it can search the internet and find relevant information and send that, but it's important, it's contextually relevant information to the LLM to improve the response. So now Copilot can basically answer the question. It looks over multiple data sources, and then it pulls that together and generates useful content from them. The great news is also that we can do that grounding basically is also obviously on your business data. So it will go and look at your business data and then bring contextual information back. So you've got like a personalized tool that returns results back to you. And then lastly, the really amazing thing is that it goes beyond just the text-based search, right? As we see these tools in value, we're starting to see these really advanced things. The ability, for example, to create an image, which I'm sure people have seen. The ability to generate graph or even produce a song, which is I find quite amazing. Like write me a song. My son showed me one the other day. It's like this country and western song based on something that's completely AI generated. I'm like, no, it's insane, right? But the point is about this is that you now also got the ability to go and connect to specialized AI tools, like for example, let's call it a song producer. And as in the past, we've used like data sources to unlock new capabilities. Connections now to more specialized AI tools are really opening up this really amazing tool of what AI does for you currently, and as we build out into the future as to what it's going to be able to do. And then the last piece on this is just really, I think, and this is also a very important part around how these tools work. One is around security. So if you're a user in a business currently and you have Copilot, Copilot will return results based on what you have access to, which is all very well and fantastic if your access and your permissions and what you have access to is set up correctly. What we're seeing is that, and I'm not going to say most businesses, but businesses in general are good to an extent at looking after their data and who has access to what, but it's generally, I'm going to use the word a little bit loose. What this means is, if your data is not locked down correctly and your permissions and your access control are not in place, I might, for example, say, hey, I wonder what Paul earns relative to me, all right? Copilot, go and tell me what Paul Bowkett earns, how long he's been employed, blah, and if you've got access to that information incorrectly, you're likely to get those results. So it's very important that the data, there's like an efficacy around how we treat data in this kind of new world. Is done. It should be done anyway, but the truth is, because there hasn't been a sort of broader exposure to those data points, it needs to be done but certainly with way more diligence. So things like data loss protection policies, and all of these kind of I guess it's the nuts and bolts of data management and data protection in business becomes fundamentally important. And then there's, I guess, the piece around governance and compliance. So if you work in industries, for example, where you are regulated, so financial services is a really good example, right? There's definitely some governance and compliance themes that need to be taken care of as part of this journey. They should be taken care of anyway, but this makes it that absolutely more important. And then the last piece is around the privacy One is that as a business, you have control and access, so control of your data. So your data is your data. We can determine where that data is stored, so you can provision and make sure that data is controlled in the right location. And yeah, I think the other theme that comes up fairly regularly is we do not use companies' data to train the models. The models are trained completely separately, and they use let's call it output of those models against your company data to pull out the information that you're looking for when you do a search. So I think that's kind of just to give it a little bit of a theme, a little bit of thought, and yeah, I'm more than happy to throw that out there. And Paul, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to the sort of a broader statement to that, or anything you wanted to add to that before we throw it out to Q&A.
No, thanks, Darren. I think you summarized it really, really well. The one big thing is this is a journey where, we're only ChatGPT launched in about 18 months ago. As most people know, it is the fastest growing web service in history. Most people will have used it, I'm sure, on the call. And so we're still in the early stages of this part. I think, Darren, you quite like your analogy of we're in the R&D phase.
Yeah.
We have a shipping product though, but it's continuing evolving. Yeah. Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, Paul, it's wild. You just said, ChatGPT just launched 18 months ago. And Darren, even last year, just a few months ago, when we had done our first couple of Q&As together, all of this blew my mind. Like, it all felt like, oh my God, can you believe it does this? Like, look at what's happening in the world. And now I'm like, yeah, of course it does that. What else can you do? What else is it going to do? It's so quickly shifted into becoming a part of our lives. And not just because I work at Digital Boost. Like, everybody knows this. Like, I'm hardcore analog. I am an old lady. I like being analog, and I can't help but allowing AI into my life. And we had a quick question here. Was the PowerPoint created with Copilot? Love the clean look.
We would love to say the entire thing was created by Copilot. We do at Microsoft have professional creative people that do put a nice look on our PowerPoint presentations. If we have time today, we can show you a quick demonstration of creating a PowerPoint from scratch, though. We'll see how we go.
Oh, we actually,
if you had an entire Word document that you've written up on something, or you've got a brief in some sort of format, you can basically ask PowerPoint to create a PowerPoint from that.
We've got a yes, please. A demo would be great. It looks like people are really wanting. No one's got questions, but they want a demo.
Right. I see. All right, we'll jump in. Hey, and just on that R&D piece, I think just to qualify that a bit, I think I certainly don't mean it from a product perspective, whilst there's certainly a huge investment into the R&D piece around this, right? But I think from a business perspective, it's very much at that phase where, and we see this in terms of the adoption of Copilot from a licensing perspective, is that businesses are buying a couple of licenses, 2, 3, 4 licenses, and they're trying, right? So they're having a bit of a feel, trying to get a feel for how it works and where it fits in. And a couple of learnings from that is, one, do not land Copilot with your IT team. It's not the right place for it to land, because the tech guys will get it and they'll look at it and they'll go, oh, that's cool, and then they'll put it in the corner and they'll leave it. What you want it in is, you want it with your salespeople, you want it with your marketing team, you want it with people who are generating content or doing generative, those kinds of activities where there's, to your point, the ability to create presentation or to generate content, or a brief, or a marketing brief, or an RFP. And so we've had some really great case studies where companies that are responding to lots of RFP type work are able to generate that content in a significantly compressed amount of time. So I think that's important. And then the last point I make, and then maybe PB, we can think about hopping into a couple of demos, is that we're also seeing a very, very profound shift in what I'd call, and I think we mentioned this last time, Georgia, what we call our knowledge-based or knowledge workers. So you think of someone like the legal fraternity, lawyers, for example, where you've got, everything is case-based, right? So it's all text-based, which means you can go and index that information and you can go and search. So we're seeing some really interesting cases. And I think that I think it was Francis Valentine that used the analogy of needing an employment contract for an employee in Australia, and going to her lawyer, and the lawyer says, yeah, I'll do the contract for you, to be $3,600. and she promptly found a large language model that was a legal biased model or a legal model, drafted one, changed a couple of terms, sent to the lawyer, and he said, yes, it's perfect, and then charged her a fraction of the cost. So we will see in those kind of instances, profound changes. The medical industry is going to be really, I think, profoundly, it's really going to impact how, for example, can you imagine if you're a doctor with a patient and you are using one of these tools to transcribe your meeting with your patient as opposed to having to write notes, physically write notes. And at the end of it, you get a summary and again, I'm going to use the word biased, but a medically worded output from that consultation that gives you all the information. And the doctor now doesn't have to sit and write it up and file it. It's all done mostly in an automated way. So the doctor now can spend more time with his patient, right? So looking at that more that interactive now. So I think there's some really phenomenal outputs we're going to see from.
And I love that. And as you were saying, like I was thinking, oh, what a great idea for a patient as well to be sitting in there with the doctor talking. Because if you've got something major going on, you're not paying attention and allowing these LLMs to just pull it all in for you and then translate it for you later. Oh, they said this is what it means in lay terms. It's going to be phenomenal. One thing I want to touch on before we jump into the demos is compliance. And you had touched on that and mentioned it. And, just for everyone who's watching, I'm just going to plug Thursday's workshop where we are going to talk about the international standards and what they've created as far as like compliance, and not that you have to be stuck to each rule of AI compliance, but just to have a broad view over how do we use this? How do we take care of our businesses within this? And even just implementing like one or two things, right? To make it, I guess, if we're moving forward in this world, if we're moving forward in AI as a business, you're going to have the security part of it down. So that's my little plug for Thursday. You guys better sign up. Everyone who's here, I want to see you Thursday. The end.
Okay.
Oh, quickly, what's the main difference between the free web version of Copilot and the M365 paid version? Is it the orchestrator to contextualize responses?
That was a great question. I'm really pleased someone asked that. I have a slide that might help articulate that for everyone. The other thing I'll just call out is that, actually, let me go ahead and just share that real quick. Can I just take over the screen here?
Yeah, do
so let me just go screen 2 here and share my whole screen. But first off, I'll just bring up that slide just to take you through that. There it is here. So the key thing to note is that in Bing search, which is our equivalent to Google search, we have originally we built what was called Bing Chat, and we've renamed that to Copilot, which is the first row of dots or column, if you like, in the slide. And then with the Microsoft 365 license, if you have that, so if you have our Office 365 plans or the Microsoft 365 plans for business specifically, or enterprise, it's not the consumer version, then you also get Copilot Pro. And the most important point about this, and Darren touched on it, is that you get this thing called the commercial data protection. Plus, we also give you access in the consumer versions to Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint capability in those products. The biggest difference with the M365 suite itself, so this Copilot Pro product will normally cost you an annual or a monthly subscription fee, but it's included in the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 subscription. The big difference with what we call Copilot for Microsoft 365, as you can see on the screen here, you get the Teams capability built in, and everything that it queries and that you want to provide summarization or create or ask or curate content on is all based on the data that sits in your Microsoft 365 or Office 365 subscription or tenant. So we can query your emails, or you can query your emails, you can query your Teams meetings, your documents, all of those kinds of things. So does that answer the question? Let me jump back to see the exact question there as well.
I can reread it. What's the main difference between the free web version of Copilot and the Microsoft 365 paid version? Is it the orchestrator to contextualize responses?
Yeah, the orchestrator still works actually, and we have those fancy diagrams that I don't know if most folk would want to see on here, but we've got lots of those technical diagrams that show how everything works. But the orchestrator is always a part of, I mean, ChatGPT has that capability as well. We add some overlay to it though. That's the most important piece, is that when we query when you add your prompt, we add in we augment the prompt so that it incorporates things like what's your security policy. It looks at your access control to data. It actually incorporates a couple of things that we some what we call standing prompts, so that the AI doesn't send out or respond with hallucination, which is what a common thing that people have commented about generative AI, right? You type something in and it kind of comes back with something that's completely wrong. And it's because it's not actually a brain. It doesn't think. All it's doing is looking at all the data sources that it's had access to, and it's built up a bit of this question that you've asked looks a little bit like this question here, so I'm going to give you that response. Whereas what we do in Copilot is we add some grounding prompts into your prompt. So we inject some more stuff into it to essentially ensure that doesn't happen. Can't guarantee that it won't always, but generally it's pretty good. Yeah. I noticed, I'll just carry on since I've got the mic, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
I noticed at the bottom in small print, it says soon for Mac. Yeah, this is just the Mac versions of Outlook, Excel, PowerPoint. So that we have it running fully in the browser apps today. But the Mac version, I actually would need to double check the time frame on that. And maybe that's one we can do if there's a post forum place we can add comments to. But I'll follow up on the exact time frame on that.
And I suppose what kind of wrapping that up, the one is a consumer. The Copilot Pro is predominantly focused on and consumer. And I guess I would say, like, I guess you could use it in a smaller business. The Copilot for Microsoft 365 is the business tool. And then as Paul says, it's got all the wraps. So one is it's looking at your business data on your business tenant, right? So it kind of wraps that. So it's returning results then both from the web contextualized in your business environment, and then obviously indexing and returning prompts or returning results against your business data. So that to me, that's the kind of the key differentiator between the two.
Yeah, you guys could see my chart before, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
do you want to launch into demo?
we can do that. Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe if I know there's a couple of comments and questions in here about doing some demos. I would love if people jumped in to see what you'd like to see. We've got lots of stuff, right? And in fact, maybe what I'll do, let me go ahead and just share my screen again, and I'm just going to show you something in here. I think it's in this deck. Let's just have a quick look. I just want to show you the different capability that you can do across the apps, which might give you a bit of a feel for them. So I'm pulling up another PowerPoint here. So I just think this is quite a nice single slide that just talks about kind of at the core level, what can you do in the product? And so that blue line at the top, you can catch up on things, you can summarize things, you can create, you can ask questions, it can give you coaching. You can understand concepts, like very technical concepts. You can ask it to make it simplified for you, put it in business language, or put it in the construction industry language, that kind of stuff, right? Whatever your industry is. And it can help you solve things. And it can do that across all of those apps that you see on the left-hand side. So hopefully most of you today are running our Office 365 or Microsoft 365 subscriptions, and you'll have access to all of these products. Essentially, they're pretty much included in all the subscriptions, all the core suite subscriptions we have. And then on the right-hand side is the core chat bot, if you like. It's probably not the right term to call it a chat bot, but it's a bit more advanced than that. But you can see some examples in that chatbot window of the types of prompts that you might ask. And I'll show you guys this, but I would love people just to jump in and make a quick comment about things that you might want to see. If you've never heard of something like Loop before or seen Microsoft Whiteboard in action, happy to kind of even flash those things up as well. But I'll do some standard ones like what can you ask Copilot? And we'll maybe look at creating a PowerPoint, doing summarization in Word and also in email.
How about a PowerPoint on how to create a PowerPoint?
Can it show up producing graph? Yes, it can do some of that. Excel is still evolving, but I'll show you some of that working real quick. So thank you for the comments and feedback as well. Keep them coming. What I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and just open a couple of documents here. I've got a couple pre-opened that I would grab. So right here, I've got these are dummy documents, by the way. Actually, there might be some real data in here about climate change at Microsoft, but they are for demo purposes. Yeah, I've got this. I've got this document open, and I've got a little Copilot button on the far right-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and click that Copilot button, and right through all the Office apps that I showed you, that big line of logos, you'll have a Copilot icon, basically the same as you've got here in Word. And you can see it's come up with a couple of options. So we always give you some standard default prompts that you can use. So the first one is summarize this document in 3 key points, or how can I more precisely describe, and you can type in whatever kind of context or subject area that you want, right? So I might even say, tell me about what's the top, climate change initiatives by Microsoft in the UK. You can ask very, very specific questions about this document. You see that this document is about 8,500 words long, about 30 pages long. So typically this kind of document would take someone, probably half an hour to digest. At least that's at 1 minute per page. So that's someone still skimming, right? So usually going to take someone a couple of hours to go through at a much more detailed level. So just as an example, I'm just going to show you this. If I scroll down here, you can see how there's things like, here's some options for Microsoft. So I could do something like, let's just do summarize the doc to start with. Let's just go ahead and do that. You'll see it working. So it's going ahead and basically forming the prompt right now. It actually splits it up into small little segments. It injects some of those things I talked about before and make sure it's reading it correctly. And you can see it's it's providing some response to me now. So that's super, super handy. And then from that, it actually then gives me other options. You can see it says make it more formal, or I want to make it more casual. The other thing I can do is I can click this little view prompts button down here, and I've got a whole bunch of other things I can do. So how can Copilot help? Or how do I add a table of contents, right? So it comes up with suggestions here. This comes from our Copilot Labs, which I'll talk a bit more about after we've done a few of the core presentations. But I'm just going to go and actually do something different in here. I'm going to say, what are the options for Microsoft in the UK to improve their climate actions? I haven't done this before, by the way. I'm not sure of the exact results, but we'll see what happens. And the other thing is that you can do a few spelling mistakes. I just tidied them up just to make sure we got it right, but you can do some spelling mistakes, and Copilot will basically work that out for you typically. So yeah, it's going to go and review that whole document. Obviously, we've got a section titled options for Microsoft, so that's a bit of an easier kind of prompt. And I'm going to show you a much more complex one in a moment as well. I'd love some feedback in the chat as well if this is the kind of things you want to see. And I'll keep going though anyway. So there you go. So there's a couple of examples there popping up. So yeah, some nice things there. And you can see one big thing that we do differently in Copilot is, imagine if I was doing this as a chat against the Copilot core chat service. It would reference all of the, kind of thinking out like a bibliography kind of thing. It's going to reference all the locations of where it pulls that data point from. So here's all the pieces from this document that it's gone and grabbed it from. Now, once I've done that question, and now it's asking me, tell me more about the COP26 partnership. So I'm just going to go hit that. I won't spend too much more time doing this right now, because you get the concept of it. But you can see how as I keep prompting, it's asking me for more and more intelligent questions as it's learning itself. Remember, again, this is a 9,000 word document, 30 pages long. It would take me hours to work this stuff out, right? Without just sort of skimming or maybe doing control find. So it's given me some really great stuff. Oh, the other thing is just quickly, I can obviously make this a lot bigger to read it. There is a copy button here. So I can copy that and paste that anywhere I like. So I can just quickly paste it into an email. The next steps, what we're doing with Copilot is we're building the integration between PowerPoint, Word, Excel, and email, so that when you generate this stuff, you can start it to build out a full email for you as an example, right? So, and then you can do things like, actually, I'm not quite happy with that response, rewrite this component of it. In fact, I could do that right now with this one here. I could say, look, please rewrite this, but put it in layman's terms or whatever you want, really. I think probably people mostly get that. The other thing I might want to do, this is a bit more advanced, is can you please put the, and I'm assuming there's potential benefits in this document. I honestly haven't looked. I'm just going to do this just for fun. So can you please put the potential benefits of climate actions into a table and list the core benefit. I really hope there's actually some data of this in here, but it'll make it up anyway. No, I'm just kidding. It won't. List the core benefit, the potential gain and outcome if there is a partner or someone responsible, and what the estimated date will be. I've made a few spelling mistakes here. Let's go. This is go. I'm going to give it a go. This is a live demo. We'll see what happens. I honestly haven't looked if this document has this data in it. I assume it does, though. It's kind of a overall climate change for Microsoft document. I'm sure it's got some benefits in it. There we go. So it's creating me a table now. Cool. And so it's kind of worked out the table headers for me much better than I did. I had lots of spelling mistakes in there as well. That wasn't by purpose, by the way. I'm typing sideways. My screen is on the side, so I'm typing sideways. Yeah, and so it's given me some nice summaries there with some dates. So that's kind of pretty interesting, right? Hopefully you all enjoyed that. That's Microsoft Word. Oh, actually, I'll just quickly check. I'm working for a corporate. We use 365. I just went into Word and don't see Copilot. Yeah. So Hannah, you have to, for the Microsoft 365 Copilot product, it's a separate subscription license. So your company will need to purchase that license for you. So talk to your IT team or whomever, maybe finance looks after your license purchases. If you don't get anywhere, come back to us. We'll sort you out. We definitely want everyone using it. I will show you how to use the core Copilot standard capability in a moment, but this is the Microsoft 365 piece, which is using your data. The other one is, does this summary work in large PDFs? Yes, it does. We've just launched the PDF capability to do this. We've been able to summarize PDFs and other things, but we've now improved the PDF capability as well. And then could Copilot then delegate recommended next steps and actions? Yes, it can. It won't necessarily tag the people in your organization, so they won't necessarily get a triggered email or a task in some platform, but that's actually on the roadmap. So yes, I could go in here and say, is there, please, I could literally, and I won't do it just for time's sake, but I could say, please find the owners of each, task and set up a table of, actions for them. So I'd go ahead and do that. It will work, but it won't necessarily be able to send them those pieces, or look at your org chart at the moment and go, okay, Paul Bowkett's the best person for that particular role. The other thing is it does rely a lot on, and in 365, you can create skills. So you can actually stipulate what people do, what things in roles. So that's that. I'm just conscious of time, so let me go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I'm just going to grab a link to this document. So I'm going to copy the link for it right now. Something is presenting us from sharing. Please try again later. Bear with me for a second. Copy, copy path. Okay, let's try this. Not because I'm sharing it on the screen here. Okay, so here's PowerPoint. So in PowerPoint, same thing. I've got a create presentation, understand things. So I could open up a really long, large PowerPoint, 100 slides, 200 slides. I could say, well, what are the key dates in it? Who owns what? Things like that. Who's edited this document recently? What have they done? All those kinds of things. I'm going to go ahead and do create a presentation. And I'm going to go and do this one here. So I've pasted the link to the climate change document. And this is going to basically go and build out a PowerPoint from that Word document for me. So coming right back to the first question we got, do our PowerPoints get created by Copilot? And yeah, generally now, any of our customer presentations, those kind of things generally are. So it's taken a little while to find the presentation. There was some error I was getting with the sharing thing before, and I think that might be because I'm just sharing my screen at the moment on Zoom.
Very important that those documents need to be in your cloud base. So you can see it says there, Paul's SharePoint, my.sharepoint.com/personal. It needs to be basically in the cloud. If it was on your local machine, it won't process it.
Yeah, great call out. Yeah. And that's obviously key team anyway. We want, if you're using Office 365, Microsoft 365, we want you to have all of your data in OneDrive and SharePoint so that you can easily share files around, so that you're using the power of the retention policies, the security, all those kind of things. So I'm going to go into the slide sort of view here. Let's have a look what we've got. So not too bad. It's chucked a couple of images in here. Okay, so not too bad. Don't know what this last one is. Okay, so not going to do it perfectly right because it depends on the formatting of the Word document as well. But when you look at things like this, pretty cool. Here's an appendix. It's actually chucked a table in for us, which is pretty nice. And then what the cool thing is, I won't spend too much time on this, but I'll just say, please add an image. Image of climate change. Oh gosh, I need to get the spelling somewhat right. Climate change to this slide. And so it's going to give me some options for images. And so if you wanted to, you could go ahead and ask it to put images across all the slides based on that format, the content of the slides, things like that. Okay, there you go. It's picked one with a polar bear in it. I can go and change that anytime. So I'm just conscious of time, so I'll just park that PowerPoint there. Hopefully that gives everyone a bit of a view of that. And
we've got an ask for another demo. Do we have time, do you think, to do another quick one?
And absolutely, yeah. And can we use extract data in CRM? Yes, what I might do, just because it's probably just in terms of time frame, I might just actually show you that in a PowerPoint if that's all right.
I'll just read it out loud for people who are watching the recording.
One thing I just thought I'd show you quickly is the chat capabilities. So this is the kind of main chat or Copilot experience in terms of just outside of the apps. You saw the screenshot before. And you can see there's prompts in here like, please summarize a Teams meeting where I was mentioned last week. Ask me about who is so and so. And I'll just do a couple of fun ones because I don't want to share too much of internal content. If I asked it to give me a list of all my emails from my manager, there might be some stuff in there that we wouldn't show. I'm showing you this in real time rather than a demo environment right now. So yeah, you can see this is querying just who is Satya Nadella, who is the CEO of Microsoft. So it's just gone and done a basic query there. The key thing is it takes me to a link in our service, which would then show me as org chart and things like that, which is pretty cool. But and then see how it's telling me who are the other executives at Microsoft. Another cool thing I can do is down here, I can say I want web content. So if I ask that question, who is Satya Nadella? That was maybe not a good spelling There, it might not work. Well, let's work
I
it out.
fixed it for you.
So it's going to basically query both internal at Microsoft as well as, so internally in our Microsoft 365 tenant, as well as external data because I've asked for web content. Does that make sense to everyone? So the power here is instead of me going and doing something in ChatGPT or using a Google search or whatever, I can go and type in something to query both internal data as well as web-based data. The other thing I'll just do is show you the prompt library. I mentioned this before when we were in Word. This is what we call our Copilot lab. And in here, we basically have these three categories called catch up, create, and ask. So if I choose catch up, then it's going to give me a whole bunch of different prompts that I can use. So I could say, summarize messages from my manager. I'm not going to go ahead and do this, but you see how it's automatically put the prompt down here for me? And this one here will bold the subject line of the emails and put them in a bulleted list with key points and action items from the content. So you can kind of do something like that. I'll go ahead and just delete that out of there. Oops, wrong button. I'll go back and say, hey, how about creating or asking something? So maximize your time. What's in my calendar tomorrow morning? And so, yeah, you can do things like that, right? It'll just go ahead and do that. The other thing is you can just start typing with a backslash. You can see the backslash here has come up and it's given me a list of different documents. So I'm going to go ahead and just say, Copilot Pitch Deck, give me a summary of this file. So it knows the things that I've been working on. I'll just show you the backslash again. It gives me people that I work with. It gives me files and meetings. So I'm not going to go and click on it because, again, confidential information, but I could click on meetings here. And I could, if I had a meeting, say, yesterday with ASB Bank, whoever it is, it's going to go ahead and give me the results and the summary of the recap of that meeting. So, yeah. And for some reason, it's asking me I don't have a summary of this file available. I think it's because I've got the file open, actually. So yeah, you get the idea with that. The one thing I'll just finish on here is, I know I'm conscious of time, is you see this little green box or circle at the top. It does say that we've got the enterprise compliance standards applied to this. So that's going to ensure that I'm only seeing data that I have access to. And it's going to overlay all the security and compliance pieces to it. And if I click on web here, this is our web query, which I can go and ask it anything. And over here, you can see it says I've got commercial data protection. So if you want to go and paste a whole lot of your company financial data in here or PII information, you can do that. This is a web query, but Microsoft will not save that prompt. We won't use the output of it or use the prompt for any of the large language model evolution and learning. So that's probably just a key point, just to show you how that works. Now, I am conscious of time, so I'm just going to jump into this deck here. I apologize. I'll just have to quickly
Take your time, Paul. As long as you guys don't have to run away, we're fine to go a little over. Don't sweat it.
So, Copilot for Sales. Now, I haven't shared this with audio, but I'll just show you this this running. Actually, I think I'll just do it this way. You guys should be able to see this fine, no problem. I'm just going to go ahead and play. It's only a very short video, which will show you our Dynamics CRM platform or customer engagement platform, which helps you with sales, customer service, activity tracking, and it shows you the integration of that with Outlook. And that might also give you some examples of how our Outlook Copilot works as well. I think it's probably a good option to show you both those. So I'll go ahead and play that now.
Copilot for Sales combines all the capabilities of Copilot for Microsoft 365 with seller-specific plugins and skills. It meets salespeople where they are, right in the flow of work, including in Teams and Outlook. Copilot for Sales works with any CRM to enhance sales productivity, build stronger customer relationships, and ultimately help those salespeople close more deals?
So I know that was pretty quick. Hopefully people got to see that and kind of picked up a few of the points there. Where it's landed actually just on the screen at the moment is the Outlook UI user experience. And you can see that on the right-hand side, it's summarized the meeting for me. And then we've pasted that then into the email. You see the add to email button down the bottom here. And in fact, actually in this particular case, the source is salesforce.com. So this product also integrates to Salesforce as well as our Dynamics suite. So for those people that are using Salesforce. So yeah, what happened in that video was basically using Outlook to summarize an email, draft a new email, pull data from the CRM system into the email, and then draft it into Outlook, and then draft an email based on that data that you had in Outlook as well as your CRM system.
It's fantastic.
Because I know we are near time. So
quick question here. I paid for Microsoft 365 Business Professional through GoDaddy in March, but I do not have the Copilot button on top of my PowerPoint screen like you. Should it update automatically?
So in PowerPoint to get Business Professional. So hang on, take a step back. GoDaddy has a special agreement with Microsoft where they sell a package service which includes some Microsoft 365 services. I don't think the product you bought includes Copilot for Microsoft 365. That's the big differentiator. Again, I'll just quickly go back to let me kill this presentation, and I'll just go back to this one here. If you think about this slide again here at the moment, you will be able to get the pieces on the two first columns, but you won't be able to get you'll be able to get the first column, but not the last two columns, I believe. I would log a request with GoDaddy on that because I'm not 100% sure what their license is. I don't know, Darren, if you can comment on that.
Yeah, I'm just looking quickly because it's been a while since I looked at it. Yeah.
Generally speaking, for those on the call, the Microsoft 365 stuff that I've shown you, for instance, querying internal data, using things that are in SharePoint and OneDrive to build out PowerPoints or Word or etc., or Excel even, that is the product on the far right-hand side, and that requires a separate subscription to purchase. It's not included in the base product that you have today. What you do get in the base product, though, is the web query, which I'll just bring up on the screen, which is this piece here. So you can go and ask it any questions you like. The most important difference, and we would love you to use this over ChatGPT, is because your data is protected. So we're going to adhere to the standard privacy and security compliance that we support across Microsoft services.
Yeah, there's another question about licensing, but I don't know if you guys are I wonder if there's someone else that can answer these questions better. We use 365 E1 licenses, but I still don't see Copilot in Word, etc.
Yeah, it's the same topic, I guess. You will need a license to access that capability. I'll jump into so this is, I'm on an Australian website here, but let me go to New Zealand. It's come up now. So in New Zealand, the pricing is $48.50 per user per month. And that is on top of the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 subscription that you have. When you purchase that, you then get all of the capability that I just had on this chart here. So you get the Copilot in Teams, our graph grounding capability, which means we're querying your data, and the enterprise grade protection. So we adhere to all the security and compliance that you have in the Microsoft 365 suite. For those, since I've mentioned pricing, for those maybe just asking a little bit of querying, maybe that price point, the one thing I'd ask you to think about, and we have lots of data points on this, is the time savings that you make. If you think about what I showed you earlier with the Word document, something that would normally have taken me an hour to do, I was able to do in 5-10 minutes. I was able to create a PowerPoint that would normally have to be manually done with copy and pasting, which would take a minimum of an hour probably. You think about that time saving, you add that up over a month, you've easily paid for a subscription license to the service, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. And we're always looking to saving time and money. Is there a discount for nonprofit groups or nonprofit businesses?
I don't think Darren, do you know that?
There's not at this stage yet. So we're still in, I'd call it commercial launch. We don't have any indication yet as to what will happen with not-for-profits or for education institutions at this time. So not at this time.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Paul, on your previous slide with the Copilot pricing, there's a link to the qualifying SKUs. Might be worthwhile just if you've got that open, just to go back. There was a link underneath the on the kind of plan on your
on the web browser.
On the web browser, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Actually, let me go ahead. Am I sharing my screen?
Yes, you've got the Copilot.
So,
buttons.
Yeah, so qualifying plans, sorry, yeah, pretty much most of them nowadays. Yeah, I don't know if people can see that. I can zoom in. Yeah, so a license for any of these. Actually, that question from the person that's using GoDaddy, I'd reach out to GoDaddy on it because they do have a special agreement with Microsoft, and maybe the subscription you buy from them is not the exact same one as these. I don't know. Probably is, but double check that.
Yeah, it's Business Professional, M365 Business Professional.
Yeah, which is
different to Business Premium. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't quite know what that is exactly.
Yeah,
we've got another quick, good question here. Does it work with multi-language content?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
Thank
you for asking that. Yes, in fact, I should have shown that. So yes, you can absolutely translate content English to Maori and vice versa. In fact, one of the really cool things, and we're using Zoom today, obviously, because that's what the Digital Boost service uses. But obviously, we use Microsoft Teams at Microsoft. That's part of our subscription services that we've just referred to. And inside Teams, even, we can live translate into different languages as well. And a recap, and I haven't even got to showing you that stuff yet, but in Teams, you can recap a meeting and it'll give you a full summary, and you can change that into Maori if you want. You can prompt in Maori and things like that. Yeah.
I think it's a really good segue into kind of, let's call it the what next phase. I think taking a little bit of a step back, and this is a personal view, not a company view. My personal view is we're in wave 1 of generative AI for commercial use, right? Whilst the artificial intelligence in various forms has been around for many, many years. We're getting to the point now from a capability and from a compute perspective. In other words, the ability to generate these models and use them is really moving forward. And I think what we'll see in the next 6 months is going to be quite profound in terms, for example, the ability to interface with a device using your voice and have that voice come back at you in it sounds like really genuine, sounds like a human. Any language, you can converse in any language, you can. Yeah, so I think that the way in which we interact with these tools is going to evolve quite rapidly over the next period of time. That I think prompting may become less, not important, it's going to be important, but the way in which we prompt is going to be, it's going to modify, right? So there's some really exciting things. I love the language question. It's super important because, to Paul's point, I mean, in my role, I work across company, I work across India, I work across Japan. So for the ability for our Japanese colleagues to be able to listen to English conversations and have it real time translate into Japanese as they go, to be able to summarize meetings in Japanese it's amazing from that perspective. So there's some really cool features about how this enables us in our day-to-day business lives.
Yeah, and on that note, I would want to invite all of you who are listening today to come and join us again in September, because I'm pulling Darren back in. 5th of September, we're doing a workshop where we're going to actually dive in a little deeper and get a little more hands-on with these tools. And by then, who knows what would have evolved, right? Let's see the difference between today and September. It's not that far away, but we're going to see some big shifts. So I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. I don't see any more questions. Paul, Darren, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Thanks all for joining today. hopefully you got some value from it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I think absolutely. Yeah.
just so appreciate people taking. I know everyone, people are really, really busy in their day, day-to-day jobs and lives. So I so appreciate taking the time, and Georgia, to you and the team, the Digital Boost team, such an amazing platform. We really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit, because this is just literally scratching the surface,
Oh,
a little bit of what the story is. Thank you.
and we're so grateful that for your time, because we know you're absolutely busy as well. So the fact that you could take some time out today and hang out this morning, have my coffee with me, and be able to share your mahi with everyone has been spectacular. I have so much gratitude, and we all do. We've got a huge thanks from Jeanette. Yes, the recording of this session will be on our platform. So if you're not a Digital Boost user, if you're just watching us from the socials, make sure that you sign up for Digital Boost, and you can see the recording on platform later today. Absolutely great to see you, fellas, and hopefully have a great day. And I'll see you in September, Darren. Maybe you too, Paul. Who knows? We'll see.
Thank you so much, Georgia.
Cheers,
We'll
guys.
see you. Have a
See
wonderful
ya.
holiday.
Thank you.
And birthday. Happy birthday. Bye.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.